guys, welcome. This is Jen Frost with Faith and Fabric, and we are back for our next Free Motion Friday. It has been a lot of fun journeying with you guys every Friday through scripture as we practice our free motion quilting. So today we're going to work on a water theme. You know, last week was pretty tough. I'll put a link up here to it, but we made those little abundance of flowers, if you remember. And that was where we combined two different skills into one. So again, that was a pretty challenging one. And I thought this week we can kind of take a little bit easier of a pattern, if you will. So we're gonna work on some water. Now, water's a really fun one to use. You know, I'm holding a piece of fabric here. This is gonna be the practice pad we use. It's blue. I thought that goes well with water. Kind of got that little water droplet feel to it. But we're gonna be doing almost like a meandering water today. And there's a really pretty verse that inspires this. Isaiah 43:2 reads, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." I really like this verse because there's so many times in life when all of us just feel completely overwhelmed, like that deluge is hitting us. And I like this verse because when we're passing through those waters, through those turbulent times, we're not doing it alone. We have someone with us. We have someone who loves us with us. And so even if we may feel like we're going through that alone, we know God has always got our back. He's always by our side. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to go through those hard waters, because life, right? Life is hard. But we have that comfort and we have that knowledge of knowing that we are not walking through those waters alone. It's like that Footprints poem. I'll stick a link over here to it, a picture of it. But this is a great little poem about how when you're walking, you know, there's two sets of footprints. And then when things get hard, there's only one set, because it's saying that was God carrying you. It reminds me a little bit of this verse, how when we're going through those heavy waters, how we're not doing it alone. So let's get started on some tips on how we can make our water today. So your first tip is going to keep all of your lines horizontal and on the same plane unless you're turning to make those curved edges of the corners. Your second tip is to go slowly around those curves. You don't want to end up with sharp points. Your third tip is to try to keep the spacing between your horizontal lines somewhat equal. So I thought we can actually practice this one over on our line designer today before we head to the machine. So let's head over to the cutting table and we'll give it a quick practice. So here's my very cool line designer. You'll see this is that tool that we reviewed a couple weeks ago. I'll stick a link up here for you. But what it does is it gives you a chance to practice your free motion quilting without having to waste practice pads or thread, which is awesome. So let's go ahead and practice some of our water. So I've got my needle is down, my pen is down, and I'm just gonna start moving my fabric here. Obviously not fabric, but my little practice pad here back and forth to make some waterways. So you'll see I'm working on those horizontal lines, kind of giving it a little bit of balance because, you know, water is not perfectly smooth. It's got those ripples. And it's almost like a meander where you're just kind of moving through your fabric, moving through your design, going back and forth. And you'll see I'm just adding a couple little turns for my water. We'll put a little one here on the end to finish it off. Oops. Now this doesn't slide as perfectly smooth as it would with fabric on my machine. I probably should have put my slow steady pad on here. I find that that's a great tool to utilize when you're using this line designer because it makes it stick even less. But you can see with my water here, my main focus is making those horizontal lines and those smooth curved turns so that way you don't end up with like a right angle. Like you wouldn't want water, and I'll zoom in here a little bit, but you don't want your water to go, You know, water doesn't do that. Water stays nice and smooth. So that's what we're gonna be working on. You'll see is keeping those little curves nice and soft as we turn to move throughout our fabric, okay? So great practice opportunity. Let's head over to the machine. A quick run through of all the things we've got here. I've got some blue sulky thread here. This is from their cotton line. This is just a great weight to sew with, cotton and steel. I've got my slow steady glider pad, and I've got my fun little fabrics that I've been using from me and my sister. You'll see between that I've got a little bit of batting, and then this is the backing fabric because we're going to be doing a quilt as you go once I've got 16 of these. We're getting close. So I've already got my bottom thread pulled up. And we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna make that exact same water shape that we had been making over on the line designer. So let's get started here. We'll start moving over first. Now I did notice, you may notice, I did increase the speed on my machine here, and that's because this is a quicker design. I feel like I move a little quicker with this as I go through my practice pad, and I didn't want to end up having stitches that were pooled. And I'll show you. So I'm going to find a nice consistent pace here. I feel like this is a pretty good pace here. My stitches look like they're a good distance apart, and I'm just slowly making that exact same water shape as we go through this pad here. So a big key here is to make sure you make those horizontal lines long and horizontal. If you end up making them too narrow, like if your horizontal lines turn a little too much, it's going to look a lot more like meander and a lot less like water. So you really want to make sure you make those longer horizontal lines so you get that look and feel of water and not of a meander. Meandering is good, but that's not the one we're working on this week. So I'm going to keep making my horizontal lines here, and you can keep making them at home too. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit, and we'll meet up at the end to take a look at our work together. Ready to take a look? Let's see how it turned out. So here's the front. Makes a really nice texture. You know, some of these I have found have just created a really soft fluff. And when I feel this, that's what this feels like. Now I'll bring it closer so you can kind of see a little bit of that pattern here. You can just see the blue weave through the blue and white here. You guys know I like the tone on tone. Now what you also probably saw is in that, in the speedy video, in the hyperlapse that we did, my thread popped. And I figured that was a good opportunity to actually flip the fabric over so you can see it sewn on the white side, which is what this is. So let's take a look at the back and see how this turned out. Overall, looks like water to me. You can see it's got those nice soft ripples that you just imagine like a brook flowing by or a little creek going by. I think it worked out really, really well to use, like especially with the blue and water, or the blue and the white, because it just adds to that water feel. But let's pick this apart a little bit. So if we look closely at it, it's really not too bad. There's maybe a couple little spots you could see. I jumped a little bit right here. Here's where that thread popped, and I need to tie that off. You know, I guess maybe this one isn't as horizontal as it should be. They kind of come down a little bit. You know, I probably started to tilt my practice pad a little bit as I was working through it. So that's not too bad. But I really like, here's a little bit of a jumpy spot, maybe a little bit right there. But you can see overall, it just makes this really, really neat back and forth water look that I love. This is definitely a pattern that I would use over again to achieve either a water effect or just to help fill some blank space. Again, the texture of this is just nice and soft and fluffy. Now, I did stitch mine a little bit more dense. Obviously, that's your choice. The further apart you spread your water lines, the softer, if you will, your fabric will feel. This one feels a little bit more dense because my sew lines are pretty close together. Again, wanted to go for that effect. It's going to be totally up to you how closely or how far apart you put your water lines. So there you go. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining me again for our water themed free motion. And honestly, I hope that you know that no matter how heavy that water deluge is that you're going through, that you are never going through it alone. If you learned a good tip today, thanks for giving us a like. If you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and do so. We got so many more videos coming out to share with you guys, and we will see you next Friday. Take care.